What's up, guys? Happy Thanksgiving week. This is your host, Jared, joined by my co-host, Adrian. We are very thankful for your listening, for your patronage. This is episode 289 of the Alamodome podcast. Got a double episode week this week. We also got a Patreon episode that we're about to record right after this. And Dan had Around the Birdbath episode for the 2026 UTSA baseball schedule review with former UTSA slugger James Tozig. So it's a busy week for us here at Alamo Audible, especially while we're also preparing for the holidays on top of all of that. So it's kind of the final stretch of football season. Adrian's been a good run this year. It's our last regular season preview of the season.
It's certainly been a ride, Jared, the ups and the downs of UTSA's 2025 football season, but we are trying to give our thanks back to the listeners with a full-fledged week of content from UTSA, from Alamo Audible covering UTSA, and that's baseball and football. Was trying to get at multi-sport for UTSA athletics. So, thank you.
I thought
Happy
we might have to. Yeah, I thought we might have to do an emergency episode for the volleyball coach, with their contract not getting renewed. But I guess she's got another year left on the contract, so we'll have to shelf that one.
Yeah, common misconception there. It seemed like everybody thought it was up, but yeah, one more.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. That was a weird one. I don't hold that against the Paisano because I thought her contract was up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we are here to talk Army Black Knights. They're coming into San Antonio, and Army kind of has UTSA's number. They're 4-1 in the season. UTSA's lone win of the series coming in 2022. A nail biter of a game. I was there in person at West Point. Frank Harris throws a back corner, back shoulder fade route to JT to win that game in overtime or double overtime.
Yeah.
But that was a tough one. That was a really, really hard game for UTSA to win. And it's just been constant. I mean, even the years where on paper UTSA should have a leg up over Army. And I think that one of those years is this year too. It just seems like they've found a way to beat the Roadrunners. They've been a really formidable opponent for UTSA.
They have been. In fact, Jared, the Army Black Knights are undefeated in the city of San Antonio, 3-0 in Military City, fittingly enough. But you talk about they have our number. They really seem to have our number here in the Alamodome. It's the only team that UTSA seem to can't best in the Alamodome. And so, yeah, man, it's a very tough team, a very good team year in and year out. Army is looking, I mean, they're sitting at 500. UTSA is favored by a score and some change, right? 7.5 points. So Vegas likes Roadrunners odds. Army has kind of been, I don't know, is wishy-washy a good term for 2025 Army football?
I think so. I mean, they feel like they're rebuilding for sure. There have been Army teams in the past where, I mean, you can watch 5 snaps of them play football and just see how detail-oriented, how physical, how disciplined they are. And I haven't got that vibe from the team this year. I mean, they have their moments where they look really strong. They beat a pretty good Kansas State team. But it's been an up and down season for them, just like it's been for UTSA.
Yeah, certainly so. They've definitely marry each other in those that they've got some bad losses and then they've got some okay wins. But it's been up and down a lot, of very, very much a roller coaster. But Army kind of getting back to like the nitty gritty style that they have always sort of been used to. I mean, they got a little pass happy against UTSA last couple of seasons. It worked well for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had Bryson Daly, a quarterback. They were able to do a lot of things that they traditionally have not been able to do because they had a super amazing quarterback.
So K.O. Helms is more of the traditional Army quarterback, and his option reads getting close to 1,000 yards on the season so far already for K.O. Helms. But yeah, I mean, it's just a slower moving offense, control the clock, grind you down, run it a lot, right? Limit opposing offensive possessions, 5+ minute drives downfield. So Yeah, you're getting back to that sort of traditional Army offensive attack, I think.
Yeah, that 1,000 yard that you threw out, that's his rushing yards. His passing yards are like 466, actually.
Correct. Hmm.
So very much a return to the Army of old. You know, Helms does have an arm. He can get the ball downfield for sure, but he's not as accurate as Bryson Daly was. I mean, I think back to, I think it was last year's game. I mean, he made some incredible throws, man. Just as good as any other quarterback in this conference. So I don't think they're going to have that with Helms. I'm not going to say he's not going to hit some throws against the Roadrunners. He very may well be able to, but he's not that on tape, for a full season this year, like Bryson
He
Daly's been able to do.
he passes the ball less than 6 times per game.
Right.
5.9 attempts for Caleb Hellam. So truly the Army option offense that we've grown so used to having to face over the years. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got the wheels. He's doing it with his legs.
Yeah. Daly was throwing for 8 per game, which I would have guessed it was higher than that, to be honest. Maybe they only just threw it a lot against UTSA. I don't know, but definitely,
Definitely.
definitely a step down in the passing attempts for them.
Yeah, and so running alongside K is senior running backs Noah Short and Hayden Reed making up a bit of that backfield, and then I guess you could also put Dwayne Coleman, who kind of comes in also to kind of just back up Kale in a quarterback position, running back, quarterback. What do you don't even know what you really call them? They just have 3 running backs back there, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that are getting a lot of carries and that are doing things. I mean, Kale's by large and far the leader of the group, but all those guys can wear down a defense.
Yeah, they run Helms a lot. I mean, they'll run them in quarterback power, just like keeper sweep kind of deal, stuff like that. So it's not just like him keeping it on option plays, like he, just is a running quarterback, straight up. And then same for, you mentioned Dwayne Coleman as well. He plays quarterback, but he's more of a power back whenever he takes off running with the ball, while Helms is a little bit more explosive, a little bit more shifty. So both guys are, a threat for sure. Coleman's definitely not as good as Helms. I think Helms is still learning, is still maturing, getting that offense down and all that. Coleman's been in that program for a really long time, so I think he knows the system well. But Helms is the better
Mm-hmm.
athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Noah Short is probably the guy that should give the most concern. He's just so fast. I mean, if I had to guess, I think he's probably a 4.3, 4.4 40 kind of guy. Super, super, super fast. And whenever you have an offense like Army has, where you kind of lull the defense to sleep a little bit, then you got a guy who can really fly. They'll use him on jet sweeps. They'll kind of hide him on the line, that slot back position, and do some weird stuff with him, and then he'll just take off running downfield. Running up the seam, running fade routes and stuff like that. So he's a tough one, and UTSA tends to struggle with those kind of smaller, really, really fast dudes. Like North Texas had a lot throughout the years that UTSA struggled to cover. So I think Noah Short's the guy that we'll have to look out for. And we didn't mention this earlier, but Army's playing for bowl eligibility. They got 5 wins on the season.
Yeah.
UTSA's already secured their bowl eligibility. So I think the motivation for Army is definitely going to be there. I think they're, going to throw a lot of gadget plays out there, a lot of trick plays. They're going to empty the holster for sure. So UTSA is going to have to be very, very, very disciplined, especially in the defensive secondary, to avoid a lot of busted plays from short releasing off the line of scrimmage and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. Caleb Helms, Noah Short, Hayden Reed, all 3 of those guys averaging over 4 yards per carry, over 70 attempts on the year for Hayden and Noah. So UTSA is a much more different, intricate sort of offense than UTSA has had to face so far this season. Granted, we played Army before. We played them every year, and so there's a little bit of familiarity, but it was a much different looking Army offense under Bryson Daly, as we alluded to earlier. So now getting back to that old school option style, going up against UTSA's defenses, as we all know, had its troubles, had its issues with bringing down ball carriers, tackling. So, how difficult of a matchup exactly do you think Army poses to UTSA's defense?
Is the tackling component that has me really concerned. I mean, I think with what Army has shown on offense this year, and how good UTSA's front seven has been, like on paper, I think they're going to be pretty good. With it also being the last game of the regular season, I think that makes it a little bit easier to prepare for that option. You don't have the tendency to look ahead and overlook preparing for the option offense, and guys can kind of fight through knowing that you're going to have a couple weeks of break to recover before the bowl game. So I think that helps, but I'm just worried that UTSA is not going to be able to bring these ball carriers down. If we
Mm-hmm.
think back to the 2023 game, I think that was the game that Eddie Lee started a quarterback, and Army had all these fourth down conversions because like UTSA wouldn't be able to bring the ball carrier down at first contact, and those Army running backs would just fall forward for that extra yard or two. And instead of it being 4th and 3, well, it was 4th and 1, and they would just kind of surge for that last yard, and have these like crazy long, 8-minute drives and all of that. So I would say that's my main concern. Like I'm sure UTSA is going to have some plays where they get a little lost and they let a big one rip through for a huge gain. But I'm more worried about does a 2 yard run turn into a 4 yard run because these guys are physical and fight for the extra yardage. And you just never know what you're going to get tackling wise from UTSA. They've had great tackling performances this year. ECU was one, Tulane was one, but then they've had some that were awful, right? North Texas, South Florida. I think even the Texas State game, I think they kind of struggled tackling wise in that game as well. So it's not just the home and away split. So we'll see if how physical UTSA is ready to be in this contest.
Yeah, I think that it's the name of the game, Jared. It's because you have to win this game on your defense's back, right? Army's going to have the time possession of 35, 40 minutes. McCown and UTSA's offense are only going to have a very limited amount of time to sort of do what they're supposed to, keep up with Army. And so defense has to keep them out of the end zone. They have to keep them off the board and try to limit how far downfield those drives go. But it's a 4-down series every single time, and so you've got to be ready for that. The tackling, we talk about Tulane and ECU and Charlotte being great tackling performances, but those weren't very physically confrontational offenses, aggressive offenses in the way that an Army is, in the way that a North Texas was, for that matter, right? I
Yeah.
think against the more kind of brash USF, the more brash offenses, the more aggressive offenses is where we really see those tackling issues, those struggles come to light. It's going to be the most important game for UTSA's defense this year.
Right. And the
Biggest test.
discipline aspect as well. Army typically is really good about avoiding penalties, especially
Super
like
clean.
15-yard penalties.
As clean as they come.
So UTSA wasn't actually that clean in the penalty game against ECU. I mean, it was enough to win, obviously. And they were better than ECU was in that regard, but they still had quite a few penalties. So those
There
could
were
really
pity
hurt you against a
pat.
team like Army.
There were ticky tack penalties, pity pat penalties, right?
Sure.
They 5 yards at a time. They weren't any personal fouls, so they were able to get away with it
Mm-hmm.
against ECU, despite how high the actual penalty count was.
Right. And I think on
Still an
offense,
issue. Still
UTSA
an
could.
issue.
I think UTSA could get away with some of those penalties on the offensive side of the ball because I think they're going to move the ball pretty well
Yeah.
against Army at home. But on the defensive side, they could be real backbreakers because, like, if you're coming off of a 6.5 minute drive that ends in a field goal, let's say UTSA has a 3-and-out, defense is back on, you get the stop, but wait, right? Defensive lineman hit the quarterback's helmet with their hand, 15 yards
Right.
first down. That
Right.
drive keeps going, right? Those are like real soul
True.
suckers, right? So that's what I'm concerned about.
Offensively, Jared, let us go ahead and go into that while we're on that note. Army's defense, not quite as brash and as aggressive or as well executing as their offense has been, I think you could say. Third down has been really bad for Army. I think they're in the very, very bottom of the barrel, 125th,
Yeah.
126th in third down conversion rate. So this is something UTSA's actually struggled with is them converting third downs. But I think they should be okay. We're seeing UTSA's offense fire better than they have all year long, particularly in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks against Tulane and ECU. But McCown, healthy for the first time, allegedly by Jeff Traylor, for the first time in 2025 against ECU. He looked electric. He looked good. You've got to feel really good about UTSA's ability to score against Army and kind of like do it in the like those quick, convincing, like big play, explosive play fashion.
Well, I think they're going to have a lot of check down opportunities as well, and I think they'll want to take advantage of those against a team like Army. You know, sometimes like you can score too fast, and if your defense just had a really um, exhausting, taxing drive where Army just slowly march down the field, if you go out and score right away, that puts your defense right back in a tough spot. So, and that maps pretty well to where Army has struggled. Right, the short passing game, they've done a pretty poor job of limiting. You know, I'm looking at some of their advanced statistics now, and like their success rate against the pass is 124th in the country.
Yeah.
So that goes to show that you're probably giving up a lot of 5-6 yard gains through the air, and UTSA has been pretty good at that this year. While the deep passing game has been a struggle for sure, I think for the most part they've done a pretty good job of getting the tight ends involved. You know, throwing into running backs fairly often as well. We saw the screen game really pop against ECU, but that's been a decent strength for them, throughout most of the season. So I think that's something that you're going to see a lot of from UTSA again this week is a lot of screen stuff, a lot of bubble screens out to the edge, jet sweeps, things like that. And I think that's probably a good move because, if you take that deep shot, UTSA struggle to connect on it, you lose it down, you put yourself in a position where maybe you've got a really short break for the defense, which you definitely want to avoid.
Yeah, you've got to try to balance out that time possession battle, Jared. But it is going to be important for UT's offense to sort of assert themselves, I think, early in the game.
Sure.
Um, and get into
Yeah.
that same groove, right? That momentum that we saw them come alive with against ECU that we hadn't seen at all year long
Yeah.
in 2025.
And the run game could be the lead there as well because I was really surprised. I watched like 8 minutes of highlights from Tulsa's win over Army. Army had a lead, and Tulsa I think scored 12 points in the fourth quarter to win that one. And that those highlights I watched, I was like, man, like Tulsa's really picking up a lot of yards on the ground. And I was thinking like, okay, maybe they just hit some big gains on some chunk plays or whatever. But then I went check the stats, and Tulsa ran for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns on Army in West Point. That was
Mm-hmm.
shocking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think if UTSA is able to get Will Henderson going, I don't know if I don't know what Robert Henry's status is, but I'm going to guess he's probably not going to play. I think he's probably done for the year, probably
Yeah,
getting
that's
ready
what
for
it
the
seems like.
draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, just seems like a decent bet. But I mean, I think UTSA has got the guys in the backfield to do exactly what Tulsa did as well. Henderson looks so great running the ball these last couple of weeks. So, and I think Army is not as imposing at the line of scrimmage as they've been in the past. Right, Tulsa was getting some serious surge, and like looking at some of the statistics and PFF and stuff like that, they're not grading out very well on the defensive line. So. Granted, UTSA's offensive line is going to come into this game super thin, super hurt. Right, they're
Yes.
kind of stumbling to the finish here. So that's definitely something to watch, right? I think Godinet's probably going to play. Jonah Miller could get the start again at left tackle. So a lot of question marks there for sure.
Also want to see UTSA fall into that same momentum and get into that groove because you want to see um, a team that still feels like they've got something to play for. With as up and down as the season has been, and to only be a game over 500, but you've got your bowl eligibility. I really want to see the guys sort of uh, rally with that enthusiasm, that standard that we've sort of talked about all season long. The UTSA comes out there and plays some motivated football. I'd really like to see that in a senior game send off, a final game in the Alamodome in the regular season, and a good exclamation point on what's been a really up and down, but in on a high, as it seems like we're playing our best football right
Sure.
now.
Yeah.
Um,
So, Army's going to have the motivation of playing for a bowl bid. UTSA is going to have the black jerseys at home, senior day. So
mm-hmm.
you hope those will win out. UTSA has never lost in their black uniforms, which is crazy.
It's crazy.
Um,
And what
they
and
have,
what is the advantage outcome for UTSA to win this game or not, right? Like, I mean, how much of a difference do you think it makes for I don't know, we can talk about, I guess, a couple of intangibles too, not just a bowl selection, but UTSA as a program and sort of going into the offseason in the future under Jeff Traylor.
Well, look, there are very few guys on this roster that were around for the 2022 season at this point. So, I mean, Army's been a bit of a boogeyman to these guys that lost to them in 23 and 24. Or actually, I don't think they played in 23. Did they? Okay, yeah, no, I'm right. They lost them in 23 and in 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, the San Antonio game, that's the ELM one that he started, and then last year in West Point. So I think that's a factor as well. I mean, I think they're probably tired of hearing, oh, Army's got UTSA's number. UTSA can't beat Army. They're not disciplined, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure Jeff Traylor found some clip of us or some other podcast talking about how UTSA's too soft and undisciplined to beat Army from 3 years ago or whatever, and they're running with it. You know how they move, man.
We keep that on the down low, Jared. we keep
whatever works, dude. Whatever works.
We're not going to talk about that. But yeah, we had a little something for the boys. Yeah, classic Traylor. Look, man, I think it's important. I do think it's really, really important for this team to pick up a 7th regular season win to finish in that positive mark on the season. Because if you think about it, they really didn't do it last year. Right? We finished 500, kind of scrapped our way there. We only got that game above that winning record percentage due to a bowl game. We only got a road win due to a bowl game. So this year it'd be really, really nice to just kind of have a better finish than you did last year. I think it does a lot for locker room and keeping these guys a little bit solid. It might not do too much for your bowl selection, but recruiting battles, things like that. UTSA's got to stay competitive.
Yeah, just
7-5.
Look, they've been on a pretty nice run in recruiting the last couple of days. So, I think some of these wins maybe have changed the perception a little bit with recruits. Maybe, I don't know.
It does something for you. I mean, the college football season only being 12 games, I mean, each and every single one in the win and loss column makes so much of a difference. But gosh, it may, at the end of the day, only be a 1-game difference. But 7-5 sounds and feels so much better than 6-6. One's a winning season and one is not. So, it's important. It's important.
Yep. A few guys in the Army defense I want to call out. So they've got 2 interior linebackers that kind of lead the way for them, at least in terms of tackling production. Don Thomas and Caleb Fortner, or I think it's Fortner. I think it's how you say it.
Caleb Fortner.
Thomas has 87 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 3 quarterback hits. Whereas Fortner has 65 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 8 quarterback hits. So those guys are kind of all over the field. They play a ton of snaps for Army, but they don't, as a defense as a whole, create a whole lot of like negative plays, havoc, stuff like that. It's really like those 2 guys that are making plays and the backfield. They don't have a ton of sacks. They don't have a ton of interceptions. Don't have a ton of pass breakups. So that's something that hopefully UTSA will be able to avoid as well, because we've seen that be pretty debilitating to them, I think, when some of that stuff happens. They have some good players in the secondary as well. Casey Larkin might be their best player on defense at safety. He's a really, really good tackler. Does not miss a lot. Doesn't get beat over the top all that often. And then Jordan Mays is a pretty good cornerback for them as well. Outside of that, I'd say it's a thinner group for Army than we've been accustomed to.
Yeah, sure. I guess Eric Ford. Did you mention Eric Ford? Say Cleve Ford or Jack Boston. Yeah, I think Eric Ford, senior outside linebacker. I think he probably deserves a shout out at the very least. But 2 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss for him on the season. But yeah, I think you are right, Jared. It might not be as deep of a unit or as menacing of a unit, and that's where UTSA has to take advantage. They've got to get the offensive upper hand, and that's going to come down to, like you said, drawing out those drives and trying to counteract, because they're going to do their damage on offense. Army's going to do their damage on offense, so always have to keep up with them. But we've got to give our defense a break. I think on paper, whenever you look at it, you've got to feel really optimistic about UTSA in this game. And I don't know how much of that is that we're playing our best football at the right time going into this. Or is it that Army has been, I don't know if struggling is the right word, but not as strong as they have in years past. I mean, it feels like if you're going to get that win in San Antonio against Army, it's this week. It's this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the advanced stats are pretty favorable for UTSA in this game. We're at the point of the season now where like teams kind of are who they are. I mean, you can improve, obviously, don't get me wrong, but especially the matchup of UTSA's offense versus Army's defense, like it looks really favorable for the Roadrunners, especially in the passing game. Um, you know, per EPA, UTSA is top 40 and top 37 in passing and rushing expected points added per play. So it's been a remarkable turnaround for them, and that matches up really well against how Army's defense has done this year. You give the benefit of playing at home for the Roadrunners, got to be pretty good. My score prediction, I'm going to say UTSA 31, Army 24. I'm gonna go right a push of the spread.
Wow. Okay. Very nice. Yeah, so I'm going to go Army 20, UTSA 28.
Cover.
Just on the other side of the spread. Beat it.
Yep. We'll see where that line ends up, though. It could move as the availability reports come out. I think it's going to look pretty brutal for UTSA, to be honest. But I think their depth will hold up okay against Army.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
Adrian, we typically do a tradition of doing kind of like a senior send off Patreon episode for every senior
yes.
class. But we got some really big names in this class. I think we'd be remiss to not shout out a few of these guys as they say their final farewell to the Alamodome, a place that, if they take care of business on Saturday, is a building they never lost a conference game in for this group.
Gosh, this doesn't even seem right.
Maybe Dishman could have lost one like really early in his career,
Man, that's
but the
just.
other guys are all trailer recruits.
I guess maybe that Army game in 2023 would have been the.
That was not a conference game.
No, not a conversation because they weren't in American yet, right?
Yep, they were independent.
Ah, that's amazing. So it is a special senior day. You've got to shout out Dan Dishman. You've got to shout out Robert Henry, guy that we might be seeing in the league running for the Shield. I don't know, Jared. We'll see. He's getting ready for draft day. He's going to get ready for draft day.
Yep. He's got
Um,
a Senior Bowl invite, I believe. So he's got to get ready to
yes,
show up for sure.
he's going to get. He's going to get his
And
chance. He's definitely going to get a shot.
with how well Will Henderson and Amarian Peterson are running the football right now, go for it, man. Go get ready. You've given this program so much.
Mm-hmm.
Totally cool with it.
Yes, I agree.
I also want to give a shout out to Corey Godnet. He's a guy that, he's played a lot of snaps for UTSA. He's a 2-time honorable mention all conference player.
Mm-hmm.
Lost his starting job this year. Probably lost his backup job as well. But, he went out there against ECU after a couple injuries hit and, played well, took care of business. Another guy that gave a lot to the program. We saw a lot of wins here at UTSA. He was a big culture guy. So definitely a guy that's going to be missed, big time contributor throughout his career here in San Antonio. And a guy who wasn't here for a long time, but he was damn sure here for a good time, Shad Banks. I mean, I think this 2025 season for Shad Banks is probably a top 3 interior linebacker single season performance from a Roadrunner this year.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
Josiah's best season has him beat, I think, almost for sure. But past that, Lakel Bass had the one crazy season where he's kind of the beneficiary of having a lot of talent around him as well. But Shad has just been fantastic this year. And for him to come in and get number 0 right off the bat, be a team leader, hold his defense together, so much respect.
I think Traylor says something about he really embodies what that 0 means or something like that in his presser.
Yeah.
And on Corey Godnet, man, honorable mention all conference 2 years, 2023 and 2024. So yeah, you definitely got to tip your hat to that guy. He's been a workhorse here. And
100%.
Fantastic cornerstone guy. Yeah, man. Yeah. Some big names, big senior day, and got to send him out the right way. Let's go get 7 on the season. Let's finish in the winning column.
Yeah, well said. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up, and we're gonna end this recording. We're gonna record the Patreon episode for you guys this week, which is a mailbag episode. We got some pretty good questions.
Yeah.
A lot about what changes UTSA should make, what would we recommend, play calling, all kinds of good stuff. We got some Thanksgiving questions in there as well. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber, you'll be missing out. It's never too late in the season to sign up for Patreon. Of course, we got all the recruiting content popping on Patreon and Hoffy's chat room. And we got baseball content ramping up. I mean, excuse me. But I do want to say thank you to our Board of Trustees members, Digi Teague, John Otwell, Gary and Ruben represent the UTSA Burger King Tailgate, Ray Redding, Andy Elizalde, Professional Benefit Solutions, Ian McLennan of Seeker LLC, Javan Townsend, President of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Water Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Brandon Padron, UTSA King Bowser, Runners United, where you go to www.goutsa.co to support UTSA student athletes. And Adrian, you want to send us home with a very special Thanksgiving thank you to our big money donors on Patreon?
Absolutely, indeed. A big shout out and thank you to the big money donors. That's Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta, and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdahl, our host of Around the Birdbath podcast, Jacob Cavazos, former board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, Joe Rodriguez, UTSA grad 1998, Russell Rincon, Brandy Dunnigan, realtor with a social house group, Home Field Apparel, where you can save 15% on your first order with UTSA Once Home Field, Alamo Audible Fan Shop, another place you can get sweet UTSA gear. We thank you so very much for another fantastic football season covering the Roadrunners. Couldn't do it without you. So thank you and happy Thanksgiving.